Hello friends, welcome to episode 4 of the Mr. Robot and Review show that I like to call Hello Friends. Thank you to everyone who has stuck with me for the first 3 episodes, hoping the audio was a little bit better last episode as I just got a new iPhone. I'm going to be again recording on the iPhone. I was trying to check the sound quality, the audio quality. It looks like it was a little bit better, but welcome. I have a channel called Project Potter. And I am doing an in-review show, starting with Mr. Robot. I am probably going to be doing other review shows once this is done, but if you haven't been here before, welcome. Hello, friend. All friends are welcome. And basically what the show is, it's a review of every episode of Mr. Robot. This is Season 1, Episode 4. I like to call this episode Monster. That's going to be a theme for this episode here. We'll kind of get into that. But basically what the show is, it's just me reviewing the show in detail, kind of scene by scene, line by line, the big moments, kind of going over my thoughts on the episode, on my favorite series of all time. I love Mr. Robot. I'm sure if you're coming here, then you have similar feelings or at least like the show or interested or checking it out. But welcome to episode 4. There's a few different segments here. If you are joining from the first 3 episodes, welcome back. Hoping to kind of improve on the first few episodes, maybe introduce some new segments. I'm not sure yet. For now, it's going to be kind of run-of-the-mill standard as it was the first 3 episodes. And if this is your first time, what are you doing? Starting with episode 4, you're a crazy person. Go back and watch the first 3 episodes. Also, make sure you watch the first, at this point, 4 episodes of Mr. Robot before you watch these, because this is a review show. We're going to go into spoilers here, but we're not going to go into future spoilers. This is a rewatch for me, but I am going to try and respect people who have not seen the show. Don't know what you're doing, because Mr. Robot was the best show, one of the best shows ever made, from start to finish. So anyway, we're going to dive into it here. A couple of different segments here. Most of the show, if you've seen this before, the first segment is going to be called The Plot is an Illusion, and that's where I'm going to go over the story details here, kind of scene by scene, recap the episode. At the end, you're going to get my score. You're going to get the White Rose Award, which is going to be the actor or actress I thought stood out the most. As I mentioned in the pilot, there might be a recurring winner for these episodes, but there are some things I've been trying to watch my own content and see things that I can do better. I know I put a lot of ums in there. Hopefully we're going to work on that. Try and, as I do it now, improve that this is my first time creating content. So this is a work in progress. And if you haven't noticed it until now, I probably just ruined it for you. And now you're not going to be able to unnotice it. But either way, hope you stick with me. Thank you for all the support. I've seen already at the time of this recording, I think we're at about 75 views for episode 1, which is crazy. I know that doesn't sound like a lot, but for me, I'm super proud of that number. So hopefully that continues to grow as we make more and more episodes. And yeah, so all right, The Plot is an Illusion. So here we are, season 1, episode 4. And as these episodes go on, I'm getting kind of continuously excited as things kind of ramp up. And then we get seeds that are planted and different characters interact and all that jazz. All right, so the season 1, episode 4. So we start off with the black screen here. This is the first time in season 1 where we get the USA Network Presents and the anonymous content sort of logo there. Not logo, I'm sorry, the introductory is on a black screen, which I thought was interesting. And we cut to just a long line of morphine cut up. Almost looks like a little bit like cocaine. And Elliot is talking to the audience immediately, and he says, there it is. After all the searching, scraping, wrestling, that's all that's left. One line. One last line. He says, the consequences of busting Bear, meeting Mr. Robot, creating you, everything until now, for this moment, I chose this. I chose all of this. And that is going to be a theme for this episode. The kind of theory of choosing, or the act of choosing, I should say, what we do and don't choose, what life kind of throws at us, that will be sort of an overarching theme for this episode, for another fantastic episode of Mr. Robot from Sam Esmail. So we get a brief cut back to black from the ending shot of episode 3, with the camera slowly panning out from the other side of Elliot overlooking his laptop at the F Society headquarters, with the other members of F Society looking over his shoulder. Elliot goes over here and he spews a bunch of technical jargon, some of which I understood, some of which I didn't, where he says the HVAC system and the data is being unreadable at 95 degrees. Basically, Elliot's plan here, he says he wants to hack the thermostat at Steel Mountain so he can avoid Mr. Robot's initial plan of just blowing up the building and killing a bunch of people, or leaving them to flee at the alarms there. Elliot says, no, I got a different plan. We're going to heat up the building so much that it's going to destroy the tapes that are in there. No one's going to get hurt. It's all good. And so Elliot goes through all this nonsense here. Everyone's staring at him like they have no idea what the hell he's talking about, myself included. And he stands up. He takes a cassette tape. He unravels the cassette tape. Takes kind of the, I don't even know what you would call that, the innards of it, the film, I guess. And he throws that on a hot plate. And I'm thinking, like, why is there a hot plate in the F Society headquarters? I don't know. It's already plugged in. It's ready to go. Anyone in, like, 8th grade science class has seen a hot plate, but I don't know. Anyway, he throws it on there. He goes, this is what we're doing. And he goes, the circuit board, if installed behind the thermostat, installs an asymmetric backdoor and where we can create a VPN in the Steel Mountain intranet. And we get this great shot here of Mobley, played by Azar Khan, if I'm saying that correctly. He's on with the glasses. And he seems to be the only one who kind of gets it. Everyone's kind of looking at Elliot like he's crazy. And he starts kind of pacing back and forth. And he says, oh, you want to hack Steel Mountain's climate control system? And he says, raise the facility's heat enough to destroy all of the tapes. And that's where everyone goes, oh, okay. But they're still thinking Elliot's kind of crazy here, and they're not really sure what's going on. And so Romero, played by Ron Cephas Jones, who does a really great job as Romero here, he walks up to Elliot and he says, you think sticking this thing behind a thermostat is going to do all of that? And they've got like a, I don't know if it's called a motherboard or a chip. Sorry for the lack of technical knowledge there, but basically it's what they would install behind the thermostat to make this plan go. And so Mobley, who's still along with Elliot, he goes over his computer and he states, I'll pull up all my research for the facility and start looking for which thermostats are the most accessible. So he's kind of all on board. Everyone else is kind of wondering what the hell Elliot's talking about. Romero goes, well, that's all well and good, but we still got to get in the damn joint. And then we get this awesome cut where there's a map rolled out. Romero rolls out the map. This is kind of like an Ocean's 11 vibe or an Ocean's movie. It's like a classic heist movie. We get a great shot of them all around around an air hockey table where they have the map laid out there, and they're plotting the heist, they're plotting the plan. Really cool kind of heist movie vibes there. And Romero goes in there, he unrolls the map, and he says, they have a 145-acre area with 3-ton steel gates, 24/7 armed guards, and closed-circuit cameras. And Mr. Robot comes over, played by Christian Slater, and he goes, you sure you don't want to just blow the place up? He's like, this would be much easier if we just blew up the place. And Elliot says, all we need is one security flaw. Romero says, look at this place, man. It was built not to have any. And Elliot says, I see 6 walking around. And we get a camera cut to the 6 different guards, the human guards that are on there. And then Elliot goes into a coughing fit. And then he picks up his bag and he just kind of leaves. And he says, we're done, aren't we? And everyone's kind of wondering, like, what the hell's going on? What do you mean we're done? We were in the middle of discussing this plan. I don't know what's going on here. And then Elliot says to us, the audience, that was about the time the withdrawal started. And he's talking about his morphine withdrawals, since he does not have the Suboxone or the Suboxone to take the morphine, the anti-morphine. And so he's just doing the morphine, and now he's trying to get off the morphine, obviously having withdrawals as a drug addict. And so we cut to Elliot in his apartment doing morphine again, or cutting up the morphine. And he says, I know, I broke my own rule, but I have no Suboxone. He goes, what do I have? Clinical depression, social anxiety, a day job, a night job, confusing relationships, others depending on me. He goes, taking down the largest corporation in the world. And then there's this great line where he says, and I chose it all. And again, this is going to be a theme. Also, for episode 3 of 4, the beer is back. Everyone's asking, where's the beer? Where's the beer? Kyle, why aren't you drinking more on the show? Have no fear, my friend. The beer is here. So we get a line here, and there's a line of morphine, and he says, this line needs me just as much as I need it. And he goes, the moment was destined. Every choice bringing me closer to this one line. This last line, I promise. As we know by now, the audience 4 episodes in, Elliot's promises don't mean shit. And he's kind of just promising so he'll get off the back, whether he's telling Shayla, just give me morphine, it's okay, like I won't just do it without the Suboxone. Elliot's promises are falling on deaf ears at this point. And so we cut to a hooded Elliot walking his dog, and he sees 2 men in black, and they're kind of cutting in or closing in on him from both sides here. And we're not sure if the men in black are kind of what he's seeing or what he's having from withdrawals, or if these are real people. It's kind of inferred at this point that it's more of Elliot's paranoia, and he's kind of extenuating the circumstances there. And so it kind of cuts between men in black who's looking for him, and then just a guy walking on the street with a coat. And there's this awesome scene where Elliot gets in his face and he says, what do you want from me? And he kind of gets up in his face, and the guy's kind of looking at him like, what the hell's wrong with you, dude? So it almost seems like it's just a normal scene in Elliot because of his withdrawals and his paranoia. He is making it into like they're hunting him down. And so Elliot goes up to his apartment, and then there's a banging on the door, like a malicious banging, like someone's looking for him, or, there's a hitman outside. And it turns out that's just Darlene. And there's a great, dramatic moment where the base is building, and there's the banging on the door, and Elliot's looking scared. And then he opens the door, and it's Darlene. And Darlene kind of looks down at the cigarettes he's been smoking, and he says, what's going on? You look like shit. And Elliot's like, don't worry about it. Elliot says he's fine, and then they just leave the apartment. So they go to F Society headquarters. Darlene and Elliot walk in there. Romero states this plan's not going to work. He goes, Evil Corp is upping their security protocol. And he says, I think it's overkill, but seems legit. And so this is the first we're hearing of this plan. Romero states that after the hack, for the New York facility, they're copying all of their tapes. They're backing up all their tapes to 4 different arenas or 4 different buildings. So he says after we hack New York, he goes, then we have to go to Nashville, then Colorado, then San Jose, and then he says, then goddamn Tallahassee. And everyone's kind of freaking out, and he says, they're backing everything up. And he said, before this plan was a maybe, and he goes, that was a big maybe to get into 1 facility. Now you're talking about getting into 5. He's like, there's no way this is going to work. And Elliot says, where did you get this information? And he says, what are you talking about? We're still hacked into Evil Corp. And then that's when Elliot says, oh, this is what Tyrell was talking about. And he goes, Tyrell? You mean Tyrell Wellick? Romero goes, when did you become chums with Tyrell Wellick? And everyone's kind of wondering, what the hell are you talking about, dude? You didn't see Tyrell Wellick. This, of course, is episode 2, the beginning of episode 2, where Elliot goes to see Tyrell, or Tyrell kidnaps Elliot, and he tells him he's going to, completely restructure this cybersecurity. They're going to back everything up. Of course, we know at this point that Tyrell got turned down for the CTO, so this wouldn't be his doing anyway, but it sounds like they are kind of revamping their security. And so Elliot looks at the paperwork and he says, oh, this isn't happening until April 1st. It's the 29th. We still have a few days. All of their tapes are still in the New York facility. And he says, let's do it today. Everyone's like, dude, there's no way. Romero says, we're not even remotely close to being ready. And then after Romero kind of shoots it down, Mobley says, I've already downloaded the PDFs for the floor plan. He's like, nothing I can't do in the car. And then Romero says, well, what about China? He says, we have to execute the hack before Tuesday. Darlene says, don't worry about China. She's like, I'll hit up my Dark Army contact as soon as you take off. Romero goes, oh, you're just going to hit up Dark Army? And he goes, oh, the world's most dangerous hacker group, you're just going to hit them up? And then Romero, who seems like the only rational one here, he goes, y'all have lost your collective minds. He says, we've been planning this for months, and now we're just going to go out on a whim. He goes, this plan is shit. And Romero states, we don't even know who's going to go physically into the building. Elliot goes, it's my plan, I'll do it. And Romero goes, you can hide it from these other guys, but I know a junkie when I see one. And he goes, all you're going to do is puke your brains out. And Elliot goes, in 3 days, Steel Mountain becomes 5. That's no good for anyone. And so we cut outside to Romero and Mobley sitting on a bench across the street. And, they're saying, I don't trust this man. Romero's saying, I don't trust this dude. And Mobley says, man, he's gotten us this far. And he goes, it's not about trust, remember? And that's kind of hinting at something bigger. And so there's this mom coming home with a minivan, and she's got groceries or whatever, and she closes the minivan. And Romero and Mobley have like a tracking device or like a hacking device across the street, and it pings in to unlock the car. So as soon as she goes upstairs, they get in that minivan's car in broad daylight, and then they end up hacking the minivan. And they're like, thanks, Mom. And I'm like, what are you talking about? How did you just hack that minivan in broad daylight? There'd be people being like, what the fuck are you doing? But anyway, they get the minivan, and then they're on the way. So Mobley and Romero are in the car, and then Elliot and Mr. Robot are riding separate. So then we get this awesome cut to Elliot and Mr. Robot in the cab, and you can tell Elliot's withdrawals are getting really bad because it's almost like a hypersensitivity where it sounds almost like a flashbang, where Mr. Robot cracks open a soda in the backseat, and it's really awesome job by Sam Esmail because it sounds like it's very high pitched. It sounds like a flashbang almost going off, and you can tell Elliot's just bothered by the simple sound of a can opening. So his withdrawals are getting pretty bad. And so there's this awesome sequence where Elliot's talking to us, and he says, the devil is at his strongest while we're looking the other way. Like a program running in the background silently while we're busy doing other shit. Daemons, they call them. And then we get this really great shot of Mobley in the minivan eating like Burger King or like a fast food burger. And he's removing the tomato and the lettuce. Bro, just why did you order it like that? But anyway, he's removing like half of the fucking burger from the order while he's eating it, and they're eating in the car. And back to Elliot talking to us. He says they perform action without user interaction. Primal urges, repressed memories, unconscious habits, they're always there. And so this is kind of a bigger thing we're going to see where Elliot, there's a lot of really awesome dialogue moments from Elliot talking to us here. Really, really cool points that we're going to see kind of throughout this episode. Elliot says, we can try to be good, try to be right, try to make a difference, but it's all bullshit. And then Elliot throws up right into the camera, which is a great moment. And then we cut to the group hacking. It looks like they're hacking into either a house or a hotel. It looked almost like they had a hotel, like they rented a hotel and they swiped the card, but Mobley was like USB connecting into it to hack it, so that was kind of weird, I thought. But anyway, they're just getting to the closest hotel or the closest safe spot where they can pull over, as Elliot's obviously not doing well. And right here I put that Elliot's withdrawals are bad. And then there's kind of a slow-mo scene where he's taking his shirt off as quickly as possible. He's very sweaty. He's just trying to get his clothes off as quickly as possible, or at least his shirt. And then he goes, hypersensitivity to brightness and sound, overwhelming paranoia, followed by the darkest of depressions. Again, really, really cool imagery here, really cool wording to kind of emphasize the state that he's in. So Elliot's clearly sweating. He's lying in the bed, and he pulls the covers up, which is sad to see just the effects it has on an addict, because obviously he's very... If you've ever been sick, where you're sweating profusely, but you're still like shivering cold, That's kind of what Elliot's going through here, obviously to a bigger extent. And Elliot's talking to us. He says, "Don't be mad at me. I know I slipped, but I'm about to change the world. I'm about to change the world." And then we get a cut to Ollie sleeping. Angela kind of tiptoeing over to go to Ollie's bag. And you can tell she's trying not to be hurt or anything like that, being sneaky there. What she's looking for is Ollie's bag for the hacker disk that Cisco gave them to hack AllSafe's security there. And Ollie wakes up suddenly, even though Angela didn't really. She dropped the disc on the ground, and there's a loud thud, as if someone wake up from that. But we'll let that one go. And so Ollie states he's just oblivious and stupid, and he says, things are okay with us. And Angela's just not feeling it at all. She's like, yeah, sure, whatever. And then we cut to see Angela going to see Elliot at his apartment, and she knocks on his door. He's not there, obviously, because he's having bad withdrawals in the hotel or the house or where the hell they are. And Shayla's there because they live right next door to each other. She comes out with the dog, and she goes, "Oh, is Elliot around? I tried texting, but he didn't text back." And Angela asks Shayla where Elliot is, and she's like, "Oh, I know better than to ask questions. I don't ask those questions." And so Shayla goes, "Yeah, do you want to come with us for a walk? Flipper could really use the company." And she goes, "Okay, yeah, Angela goes, "I gotta go to the subway anyway." And she goes, "Oh, we don't plan our walk, or we don't plan our path. We kind of just see where the moment takes us." That's a weird plan to walk a dog, because obviously the end goal is to get back to the apartment after walking a dog, and usually you have a path, but that's Shayla's vibe, so we're not going to question that. We cut back to shirtless Elliot, who's losing his mind, kind of having bad withdrawals. Mobley and Romero are watching some weird movie over there with the therapist from The Sopranos, and there's a red rabbit going through. I don't know. I probably could have looked up that movie. It looked like a weird 80s movie about a hacker, a talking hacker or something. I don't know. Anyway, Elliot's talking to us. He says, "Maybe this was all intentional, my subconscious running in the background, making me doubt what I got everyone else to believe in." And then he says, "Turning me into the physical manifestation of my fear of me being," and then it cuts off, and I think he says the word weak, or Romero says weak, I'm not sure. Interesting cut there. And Elliot looks out the window. He sees a couple of Evil Corp tractor trailers going by there. And then we cut to Trenton and Darlene working on the Raspberry file. Raspberry will come up a couple different times in this episode. And that's some sort of hacker file. I don't know exactly how that works, but Darlene notes it's been a full 24 hours and they still haven't heard from the group. And then we get a quick cut to Angela and Shayla in the park, where Shayla offers Angela some Clarity, which is some sort of drug. I don't know if it's Molly or what happened, but anyway, Angela's like, no, I don't do drugs. Shayla's like, "Look, you got to relax, and when I got to take my mind off shit," she's like, here's some Clarity. And so Angela doubts it at first, and then she goes, "You know what, whatever." And she takes it, sips it down, and they both take the drugs there. And so then we cut to what I put here as the most obvious Dark Army Boys and Girls Club, because it's just like a bar or a hangout with a whole bunch of Dark Army demon logos all over it. Really cool imagery here. I'll have that in the shots at the end, but they're just kind of hanging out. Darlene's saying, "My contact's going to show. He's there every Sunday. We'll meet with our contact. Don't worry, he'll show up." And there's just demon pictures everywhere all over the place. Anyone who's played Spider-Man PS4, they also use the same imagery, so it kind of reminded me of that. Great game. And so then we're back to Elliot, and he's still having his episodes. Romero and Mobley are arguing about bringing him to the hospital. Romero states he's running out of time. He says we don't have time to pull around dead weight, and he just kind of walks out. So you're like, I don't know if he's given up or if he's just going to take a walk to cool off. But time is running out. Time is important. Obviously, when we mentioned at the beginning of the episode, it's the 29th and April 1st. Like Elliot said, Steel Mountain becomes 5, so they got to hurry up. So, we got Mr. Robot here sitting beside the bed. Really cool shot. I'm going to put that in the end as well. He's kind of crossing his arms, and Elliot says, I just need one hit to get through this. Give me one hit. Mr. Robot's like, I can't do that for you, man. I can't do that. And he goes, no, just one hit to get me through that. And then we get this amazing cut. Really, really cool shot I'm going to have in this next sequence. I'm going to have a lot of shots in here because this was a really, really cool sequence. But it's like this awesome shot of Elliot kind of head up, and he's just barely conscious. He's barely there. He doesn't really know where he is. Very clearly struggling. I mean, Mr. Robot kind of threw him in this cab, but we get him in the back of a cab, and Mr. Robot goes, all right, he picks him up. They arrive at a drug dealer's house. I don't know if Mr. Robot just Googled or went on Craigslist for drugs, but he knew where a drug house was, apparently, in kind of a bad neighborhood. But they show up here. They talk to a dude outside, and he says, I just need a score. I need some morphine. And he goes, yeah, the guy inside will set you up. And then he goes, if he doesn't kill you first. And he kind of laughs, and they're like, oh, shit. Then we get this awesome sequence where this reminded me a lot of season 1 of True Detective. Anyone who hasn't seen True Detective, one of the best seasons of television ever made. Just recently rewatched it for a podcast. But there's spoilers. There's a scene where Russ Cole, played by Russ Cole, played by Matthew McConaughey, he goes undercover, does a bunch of drugs, and as a cop, and then he needs to. There's a whole 22-minute tracking shot where there's no cuts at all, where he goes undercover for drugs, and there's a shootout, and he's got to run between houses, and it's just this amazing sequence. It's critically acclaimed. This reminded me a lot of that, obviously not to the extent, but we're going to get a shot here. I don't think they cut at all, where just really, really, really good where the episode picks up, where you get Mr. Robot and Elliot. They kind of go around the back end, the side of the house there, and Mr. Robot's kind of bringing Elliot up on his shoulder, so similar to if you were to get an injury in sports or break your leg or something, they're kind of holding them up. Elliot can't stand on his own, so he's bringing him around to the side house. And he says, we leave as soon as you're done. Don't look or talk to anyone. He goes, not if you understand. And Elliot gives a very subtle nod where he's even just nodding. He's just out of it. And so Elliot stumbles into the side door. Mr. Robot doesn't go in with him. I think it's just got to be Elliot, and the guy out front, I think, says, just him. It's just got to be just him. So Elliot stumbles to the side door. He walks up a small set of stairs, stumbles up them, where he sees 3 F Society posters above the doorway, which is cool. And there's just a lot going on in this scene. Elliot then says, I need morphine. And there's cut to a bearded guy on a couch. He's smiling. He's kind of having a good time. And he's like, it's all good, man. He goes, trust me. He's like, we don't have morphine, but we have this. And he presents a needle. And it's like, man, hard drugs are bad. Never, ever, obviously, take a used or even not used needle from a stranger that you've never met. Just bad news all over it. And Elliot doesn't know what he's doing, but he just takes it, because he's just looking for a fix, just something to get through. And there's a girl next to the guy in the chair, the bearded guy who's kind of in charge. And she says, I'll help you. And they walk over to the couch nearby, and she ties his arm up, for needle injections, and then she gives him the drugs. Then they start making out. It's pretty hot. I put it in here. I was like, okay, junkie making out, but I was like, not bad. Good for Elliot getting some action. And then we get some gunshots. There's an awesome sequence in the background there of kind of a hand sticking out and a gun. We get some gunshots. Everyone starts screaming. Really, really cool direction here because Elliot, since he just got injected with whatever it was in that needle, it's kind of very hazy all around him. He doesn't really notice anything for a few seconds there until the 2 gentlemen from the kitchen run out, and they're struggling over the gun. Everyone's freaking out. There's some screams. And then this is where they struggle. The gun kind of goes off, shoots the girl next to Elliot 3 times. She dies immediately, or we assume she's dead. She got shot and falls back. And then Elliot goes to get up and to kind of get out of here or run away, and he gets shot in the arm and he falls to the ground. That's when we get a really cool scene of Elliot on the ground here, and he's kind of just looking up, looking at the small TV up there. It's showing the 7-day forecast. And then what does it change to? 7-day forecast, F Society, their second hacking message. Really, really cool moment. And then I wrote down their speech here. So F Society comes back on, and they say, "Dear brothers and sisters, now is the time to open your eyes. If you have not yet woken up to the reality of enslavement, I hope you realize you are fast running out of time. The government of the world and their corporate masters do not want us to speak. Why? Because we expose villains, we exorcise demons. Citizens of the world, we are here to help. If you have any interest in waking up from your slumber, retrieving lost, damaged, or stolen memory, we are here for you. We have your back. We are F Society." This was a really cool moment. The part about retrieving lost, damaged, or stolen memory, again, I'm not going to spoil anything, but this is a big, big moment for later on in the series. We will go back. We will review all of that in full spoilers as we go on. But rewatching this, something I never picked up the first time, amazing moment, really, really cool moment. All these little dialogue choices that you think are just within the episode end up being way more important and way bigger, and Easter eggs and all that going forward. So really, really cool there. So we get a slow, awesome cut from the other end of the camera lens. And then we see a fully functional Elliot walk up to a figure in the F Society mask, where he's kind of looking at him like, what's going on? And then we get the figure takes off the mask, and it reveals there's another mask, another F Society mask. This mask right here. And they hand it to Elliot. And Elliot kind of puts on the mask, and they're kind of hanging out. There's a really cool scene I put in there where it's almost like your boy's taking a video, like a rap video. Looks pretty funny. And he goes, but for the original person in the mask, which sounds a lot like Christian Slater, a lot like Mr. Robot, unintentionally or not, he goes, "First, a message from from our corporate overlords." Then we get a really cool shot to like a really cheesy E-Corp commercial where they go, "At E-Corp, we believe in the best possible fruits," and there's like a lady picking out fruit. Really, really cool sequence here. And then the commercial's cut short. We cut to Elliot walking down the sidewalk of a neighborhood. And then he gets to a mailbox that says the Aldersons on it. So we're thinking, oh, is this child at home? Most likely what's going on here. Really, really cool shot here. And then there's what looks to be like a missing sign, like a missing cat or a dog or even a child on like a telephone pole. And then when Elliot looks at it, it says error 404 not found. And you're like, oh, obviously that is kind of weird. That wouldn't be on a telephone pole, but just really cool bit into the Mr. Robot universe there. So then we get a young girl that walks up, and we assume that that's Darlene. She kind of acts like Darlene. She's got the style of Darlene. And Elliot goes, hello, friend. And he's got like a small smirk on there, which is really great acting by Rami. And he's kind of clearly awkward with social interactions, and he doesn't know if it's a friend. He doesn't know what's going on. And she goes, we're not friends. But first, tell me, what's your monster? Super weird question to ask, but Elliot kind of loses the smirk immediately, and he kind of is almost angered at the question there. He doesn't say anything, and then she goes, oh, I think you dropped this, and she hands him a little golden key, and she scoots away. But she's humming Farajaka, and Elliot starts humming, Farajaka, and then out loud he says, ding, dong, ding. Then he walks in the Alderson's house, and what does he find? Tyrell Wellick. Boom! Tyrell Wellick holding a little golden key. And spoilers, this is the only scene in Tyrell Wellick is in this scene, so Martin Wallstrom probably got a fat paycheck to sit there and look at Elliot and do nothing else. But really cool always to see Tyrell in here. But he's holding the same small key, and we're going to see that's recurring here. And so then we get a cut to Elliot sitting down in his apartment, and we get a talking fish. And that's when you know something's going on here. And so the talking fish, who may or may not be narrated by Lawrence Fishburne, sounded a lot like him. I didn't look it up. Sorry, I forgot, but really cool. And the fish talks about how he's stuck in a loop, again, recurring for future spoilers. Trying not to spoil it, but my rewatch genes are getting to me. And how his whole life has been in this bowl, and there's only one thing Elliot can do to help a brother out in a fishbowl. And there's silence, and then this is a really funny part where he yells and he goes, "Move me to a goddamn window!" And I thought I put LMAO in my notes here because that was really funny. So then we cut to an amazing cut to that fish, same fish, being cut up. Angela's eating at a really nice restaurant, and she just cutting off the head, and Angela eating the fish, and she goes, "Elliot, do you want a bite?" And Elliot goes, "Angela, he's my friend." And she goes, "Yeah, and he's delicious." So a nice little humor bit there. Elliot looks to the right, and he sees young Elliot and his mom. His mom's kind of force-feeding him food, which we've all been there. You know, you never want to try anything as a kid, and then your mom feeds you something, and then it turns out you like it. Elliot does not like it in this case, but just a little glimpse into his old life there. And then we get the waiter coming over, and he goes, "This is Pop's famous raspberry pie." Another mention of raspberry here, similar to the file that we had earlier. And I'm sorry, I think I forgot to mention this. Darlene, when Elliot's explaining his plan, she goes, "Yeah, we know what a raspberry pie is. Now, what does it have to do with anything?" So this is really the third mention of raspberry in the episode. Elliot takes the first bite, and he kind of takes it out of his mouth, and it turns out it's another small golden key. And so Angela thinks this is a proposal, and she goes, "Oh my God, Elliot, yes, of course." And then Elliot's kind of wondering what the hell's going on, and then everyone in the restaurant starts clapping. And then there's a scene where they kind of both walk out. Elliot's got a nice smirk on his face. Good acting there. And then there's a scene where they walk into the F Society headquarters, and this is an amazing sequence. And I didn't know this was in episode 4, so I'm really excited because this is kind of a famous scene that's been memed and talked about. So there's an amazing sequence here. Elliot walks into F Society wearing a suit, and he walks in. There's a really cool song playing. I didn't get the song, but Angel's in a wedding dress over there. Eventually he walks over to her, and she says, "You know, those people in there, I just told them what they wanted to hear." And she says, "You're not going to do it, are you? Change the world?" And then she goes, "Figures. And then she says, "You were only born a month ago." And that is a big line, people. You were only born a month ago. Super weird in context, but knowing what we're going to find out eventually, huge Easter egg here. And Elliot's he doesn't retort it, just kind of accepts it. And she goes, "You're afraid of your monster." And she goes, "Do you even know what that is?" Another mention to monster here. Elliot shakes his head, and Angela hands back the key from the pie, and she says it didn't fit. And Elliot goes, "Why not?" She goes, Isn't it obvious?" And then there's a voice mixed with like a demon, and she goes, "You're not Elliot. And then it cuts off. But she says, "You're not Elliot." Again, folks, this is getting hard for me through these big lines that are gonna huge spoilers for later on. I'm gonna refrain, but her saying "you're not Elliot," clearly there's something going on here. We're starting to dig into kind of that deeper mystery that Sam Esmail so beautifully laid out here. And so then we cut to Elliot on the right-hand side of the shot. There's the sound of children laughing. And it's kind of all dark around him. And then we get the front of the camera shot again. Really beautiful shot where it slowly pans out from this amazing camera. But this time there's an F Society mask hanging. Elliot walks up to it, and he says to us, the audience, "Am I still alone? Is this the face of my only friend? Are you my monster?" And he puts on the mask, and then he goes, "I am here. You are alone." And then the lights turn on. Really cool shot, and then it's just the F Society headquarters. But him saying, "I am here, you are alone," another big moment. Again, we're going to refrain from that. So I'm sorry, I'm not really getting into a lot of things here, but I really don't want to spoil it for anyone who's watching for the first time. So at the end, we will recap kind of these big moments and say, you know, season 1, we foreshadowed this and this and that, but for now, we're just going to go episode by episode. And so then we cut to Elliot withdrawing, again, in the bed, shirtless. And Elliot kind of realizes he's alone. He starts breaking down. He says, I'm alone. And there's this really nice shot, Mr. Robot coming out of the shadows here. And he says, "No, you aren't." He goes, we're in this to the end, kiddo. And so he's telling Ellie, no matter what you're going through, I got your back. And then we cut to Trenton and Darlene in the street. Trenton says, I'm sorry, your contact never showed up. And I think they've been drinking. They're just kind of hanging out. And Darlene's kind of messing around there. And then they see a black limo across the street with a dude wearing a demon mask. And she goes, that's it. That's the contact. And they get into the limo immediately. And it's a really, really cool shot where it's just a limo and it's very tight, and it's Darlene and Trenton and then the two Dark Army contacts on the other side, both wearing demon masks, and it's really tight. Very, very intense scene. And they say, hand over your phones now. And Darlene immediately hands over the phone. And Trenton's kind of like, hand over my phone. And she's like, dude, hand over your phone. They hand over the phone and they just throw it out the window. But they don't drive away, so I don't know if they would just pick them up afterwards. But really cool kind of presence of the Dark Army there. Very mysterious and obviously kind of a bigger deal there. So then we cut to Angela and Shayla, who are vibing in the bathroom at a club. It's clearly really early in the morning. Angela gets a call from Ollie, and then she kind of ignores it, and then she checks her missed calls, and there's like 20 messages from Ollie. Normally, I would say Ollie's being a little dramatic, but it's very early in the morning, and obviously she didn't tell him she was going out or anything, so understandably so, he's worried. And then she goes, oh shit, I have to be to work in 4 hours. Yikes. And then we have just a fire track that starts playing. Just a really good beat where they're just kind of vibing to it. And Shayla goes over and starts making out with Angela. Nice scene here. Really, really great work by Sam. No, it's a hot scene. I mean, Shayla and Angela are both good-looking people, and they just decided to, explore that side a little bit. So it's kind of like college all over again. Anyway, kind of a cool scene though where Shayla makes out with her and then she actually brings her over to the mirror. Angela's kind of very hesitant at this point, doesn't really know who she is, and she says, she's like, you see that person in there? She's like, that person is done. She goes, this is the new Angela. And that's where Angela kind of is like, you know what, this is the new Angela. And whether that means moving on from Ollie or just kind of being more sure of herself, Angela takes a big step here and she's going to make some progress. So then we cut to Darlene coming up on the street to Cisco, played by Michael Dreyer. Sorry, I didn't mention that before. She slaps him in the face and she goes, you know how hard it's been to find you? And Darlene reveals here that she dumped him. He goes, I'm sorry, I wanted to live my life. And sarcastically he goes, what a monster I am. Another mention of monster. Really like that theme going through here. That's why I wanted to include it in this episode and put it as title. Title of this episode is Monster. And so Darlene begs him, this is our only shot with Dark Army. Please, let me know. He goes, you never had a shot with Dark Army. She goes, please, just, talk to your people. Let me know, this means so much to me. And so he's like, all right, I'll see what I can do. So then we cut to Elliot, who's now awake, recovering from his withdrawals, drinking some anti-diarrhea from Romero. He says, this will cure anything. Looks like shit, looks gross, but of course probably going to flush the system and get him back to normal. So Elliot says to us, where did you go? Did you leave or did I? And just a little cool bit there of Elliot talking to us. He's mentioned in the past he's created us, and he doesn't really know if we're real, if he's real, what he's seeing. We're going to get into all of that as we go along the show here. So then we cut to Angela, who gets in early to an empty all-safe office, and she's got the hack CD from Cisco that they're being blackmailed with, that she needs to release it, as we mentioned in the previous episodes. Angela says the Dark Army's got her dad's bank account information and her information, so they kind of need to do this hack to hack Allsafe, but they haven't really committed to it yet. So Angela gets the computer, she puts the CD in, she kind of enters it there, and then she's maybe having second thoughts, or another woman shows up, the receptionist shows up early, so she's trying to get out of there to avoid suspicion, and she just won't, the eject button won't work. I don't know if a CD can actually do this to a computer or a desktop, but either way, she is having some trouble there, and so she has to use a pin to actually eject the disc, and at the last second she swoops out under there And then we get Elliot again talking to us. He goes, "Daemons, they don't stop working. They're always active. They seduce. They manipulate. They own us." And Elliot says, "We're in this together. The only difference is at the end, we might see some familiar faces." And we get this really cool shot of a road with a line on there similar to how the beginning of the episode started, except the road is a little windy and there's like one car going through. But we cut to black. And yeah, that's episode 4. So for a score here, I give this one an 8.9. This wasn't actually one of my favorite episodes, but kind of going back and reviewing it and seeing some of the cool shots, a lot of really great cinematography in here. Putting it lower than an 8.9, I just felt like was doing it a disservice. So 8.9 is my score. I think it's a really strong episode. There's obviously some really big Easter eggs in there, some really big hints at something bigger. You get Angela kind of figuring out who she is. You get Elliot. This is almost like a filler episode to me because Elliot's going through withdrawals the whole time, and while that's important, it's kind of like a recovery where it's like, okay, well, this character had to go through A to get to B. And while it's important that Elliot had withdrawals, he's kind of struggling, and, real hacker Elliot or active Elliot, we're going to see in the coming episodes. But this one was kind of like he's bedridden. This is adversity he had to overcome. It was kind of like a filler episode, if there is one, for Mr. Robot. So 8.9 is the score I'm going to give. So the White Rose Award, I'm going to give that one to Elliot Alderson, Rami Malek. This is I believe the second White Rose for him. So the first 3 episodes I thought were pretty diverse. I believe we had Elliot, we had Tyrell, and then we had Mr. Robot, which are kind of the big 3 main characters in the show. But this one I thought Rami just really, really impactful with every bit of dialogue he put there. He was the star of the show. Obviously, it's about him with the withdrawals, but I thought there were a lot of really, really cool talking points of Elliot to us, the audience. A lot of cool moments between him and Mr. Robot, some subtle, some not. But I just think Rami was the best one in this episode. And that's it. So, again, thank you for watching. We're at about 47 minutes now. I'm trying to get these under 50 minutes. I know a lot of you guys don't have the time. Nobody wants to sit around for too much time and watch this, but I hope you enjoyed this review. There's going to be more to come. There's 46 episodes in the series, so there's going to be a lot more. The numbers have been steadily growing. I've been really thrilled to see that. I love all the nice comments that you guys have seen. Please like, comment, subscribe. The views are important. The subscribers are important. Again, I'm not doing this to get famous or get big, but the growth is amazing, and I've loved seeing that week to week. So I'm hoping that's only going to continue. And until next time, goodbye, friend.